Today we're going to be talking about two people who were involved with the January 6th protest in January 2021, how they have been shot dead for various reasons, two very separate reasons, within an almost 4-month span. And what I really want to get at, what I really want to pinpoint is, could this be a trend? Were they targeted? Because let's get into it, right? The first person we have is Tamara Towers Parry. She was a 57-year-old doctor who lost her license. She lived out in Seattle, Washington. She went to protest on January 6, 2021. She taped herself, and to my knowledge, she did not breach the Capitol. She stayed outside, but her social media posts got her constituents, got her, basically her clients for her family practice annoyed, worried that she wasn't consistent with the thought pattern and the way that the narrative was going for most of the people in her neighborhood, most of the people in her community. So on top of that, the doctor's board for the University of Washington wanted her to appear in for a mental evaluation based on a social media post and other posts she made comments on in other areas skirting the realm of conspiracy theories, but I'm not going to get into that. The second person, so she was shot by unidentified people who were serving her papers for whatever reason. I believe this happened in October of 2024, which is nearly 4 months ago. They went, two unidentified people showed up at her door, serving her papers for whatever reason. The investigation has been ongoing for almost 4 months, and this is the only type of information we have. I don't believe that. I think there's more to the story, but it is not being covered by the mainstream media. The second person, his name was Matthew Huttle. He's 42 years old. He just got pardoned by President Trump during Trump's first week in office. He did breach the Capitol. I'm not sure if he was engaged in any violence per se, but in 2023, he was sentenced to 6 months in custody, I guess in the DC gulag, but I'm not sure. But he got released, and then he was pulled over in Indiana for a routine traffic stop. Again, this happened less than a handful of days ago, and so the information out there is sketchy. We don't know why the cop pulled him, or the sheriff pulled him over. We don't know why he got into a scuffle with the sheriff, but it ended up in his fatality, Mr. Huttle's fatality. He was unalived during that traffic stop. And there we go. But first, we're going to get into a story of Tamara Towers Parry, as you see it right here on the screen.
We're sharing new details about the woman who was shot and killed in West Seattle yesterday afternoon. 57-year-old Dr. Tammy Towers Parry was well known locally and online because of her extreme political beliefs.
Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman has been digging into her background. And Ali, you spent some time out there in the community. What are you hearing?
Police are releasing new information saying that two people showed up to serve Tammy with documents. It's unclear exactly what they were based on, but when they did so, they say she walked out with a shotgun in hand. It's still unclear if there was some sort of exchange of gunfire, but
so I don't know Seattle's gun laws. I don't know Washington State's gun laws. But apparently she was authorized to keep a weapon in her home. And you know, listen, the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States says that we have a right to protect our home. Now, it's unclear if she knew these people at her door or not, but let's continue to listen, shall we?
Police say a 40-year-old man fired his gun, hitting Tammy in the torso killing her. You can see that her beliefs are clearly up there for everyone to see, and neighbors say they did. Some of them didn't feel comfortable going on camera, noting that QAnon up on the window right above the American flag. And while her rhetoric was the outlier here, neighbors say they don't believe it caused the shooting.
Oh, it's super sad.
Towers Parry, who was a University of Washington med school graduate and a licensed family practitioner in Seattle, used another name on X, now formerly known as Twitter, Dr. Tammy, a devoted follower of QAnon. Believers in the anti-government conspiracy theory like QAnon shaman helped storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, Dr. Tammy among them. Her account has since been removed, but her live stream during the riot continues to circulate online, from Reddit forums and YouTube shorts to the Washington Post and online political commentary.
Q is you, and Q is me.
We're trying to make America great, and people are budging.
In the days following January 6th, Dr. Tammy's actions in Washington, D.C. created an online outrage back home in Washington state. The negative comments had the UW Medical School and Providence Swedish hospitals distancing themselves from Towers Parry, while the Washington State Medical Commission tweeted it was investigating her conduct. In 2022, the WMSC announced it had revoked Tower Parry's medical license after she ignored the commission's order to participate in an investigative medical exam and failed to show up for her hearing.
She was a medical doctor with a family practice that everybody had to disassociate themselves from the hospitals that she worked with because of her behavior. Storming the Capitol was not a positive thing to do.
Deplatformed from X along with 70,000 other QAnon accounts, she's still openly identified with the anti-government movement, crafting WWG1WGA on her driveway with a power washer, an acronym for a QAnon slogan, where we go one, we go all.
I think over the last few years, she definitely was keeping to herself quite a bit more. Probably since the last election, to be honest.
Behavior Tammy's next door neighbor, Joel, says is a stark comparison to who she was before, a friendly and highly community-involved neighbor. Her political views and beliefs atypical for her West Seattle neighborhood.
We always feel nervous passing the QAnon house.
We've always been kind of, alarmed and shocked that they would be so prominent and out there with.
Why is this lady smiling? There's nothing funny. This was a human being, 57 years old, that lost her life over what? Over what? Possessing a shotgun, did not pull the trigger, although I don't know those specific details, but the two gentlemen or the two people that showed up at her door to serve her papers, they were armed. Don't know why they were armed. Don't know why they pulled out and put rounds down range. Because there were 2 against 1, no reason why she should have gotten shot in that manner.
With their statement.
I don't have any reason to believe that, what transpired yesterday had anything to do with that.
Neighbors say that despite their differences in political views, things remained amicable.
And how is a U.S. flag and the word QAnon offensive, scary, or whatever the case is? There's LGBTQ plus flags up all over Washington. You just don't see it in the story because the focus is on this area. But you can't you can't judge a book by its cover and automatically assume that somebody's a threat to society because they have certain beliefs. It's discrimination, isn't it?
I can tell you that when I walked up to the home, there was a U.S. Constitution posted when you get near it, along with signs that say that this home is protected by the Second Amendment. SPD says that no other law enforcement agencies were involved and that so far no arrests have been made, but this investigation is ongoing. In West Seattle, Alejandra Guzman.
Now, I don't have any evidence that she did or did not storm the Capitol, but if there was evidence that she did storm the Capitol, there would be footage of it. But just because there isn't footage of it doesn't mean that she did not storm the Capitol. From the way it looks, she remained outside. And which brings me to my second story. Mr. Huttle Let's get to it.
And I do want to get to a developing story coming in out of Indiana. That is where a man was fatally shot by a deputy during a traffic stop just days after he was pardoned by President Donald Trump for a misdemeanor related to the incident that took place there at the Capitol back on January 6th of 2021. Matthew Huttle, 42 years old, of Hobart, was killed Sunday by a Jasper County Sheriff's deputy. That is according to authorities in the area. State police, we're told, are investigating. That is his photo right there from his arrest following the situation at the Capitol. Now, the state police did say the deputy tried to arrest Huttle when, quote, an altercation took place between the suspect and the officer, which resulted in the officer firing his weapon and fatally wounding the suspect. State police said, quote, the investigation also shows that during the traffic stop, the suspect was in possession of a firearm. At this point, no other details have been released, and authorities did not say what might have prompted that traffic stop altogether. Sheriff Patrick Williamson saying, quote, our condolences go out to the family of the deceased, as any loss of life is traumatic to those that were close to Mr. Huttle. Nick Barnes, an attorney who was representing Huttle in pending motor vehicle cases in Lake County, said he didn't know the circumstances of the shooting, saying, quote, I plan to find out a lot more about it. In 2023, Huttle was sentenced to 6 months in custody after pleading guilty to entering a restricted building, the U.S. Capitol. He had traveled with his uncle to Washington, D.C. to attend the January 6th pro-Trump rally. Huttle was inside the Capitol for about 16 minutes and recorded it on video. That is according to authorities. In a court filing, defense attorney Andrew Hemmer said, quote, he is not a true believer in any political cause. He instead went to the rally because he thought it would be a historic moment, and he had nothing better to do after getting out of jail for a driving offense. You can see these photos provided by the Department of Justice following his arrest. His mugshot there on the left-hand side, but also on the right, you saw one of the photos showing him, according to authorities there, at the actual incident there at the Capitol. Again, January 6th of 2021. An Indiana man there fatally shot by a deputy during a traffic stop days after being pardoned by President Donald Trump. If there are any updates, any more information provided by state police or the sheriff's office in Indiana, we'll make sure to bring that to you right here on Live Now from Fox.
See, there you heard that. So we just went over two stories. One was Miss Parry, the other one was Miss Huttle, Mr. Huttle. So Miss Parry, it's still a mystery on who showed up to her door. It's still a mystery on whether she shot first and the two people at the door returned fire, or it's still unclear whether she just showed up at the door with a shotgun and the two people got scared at the door, and then one of them just pulled out their gun and started shooting. So we don't know the names. We don't know the department they're from. I tell you, these journalists in Seattle, Washington need to get on it. These journalists need to get on it because this happened on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. Get on it, right? There's no evidence that she went inside the Capitol and no evidence of her being pardoned by President Trump. But she was on social media. She made tons of posts about conspiracy theories and whatever the case is, but it's still not enough to take a person's life. In the second case, in Mr. Huttle's case, yes, he did get to go into the Capitol. It may have been unauthorized breach of the Capitol. In 2023, he was sentenced to 6 months in custody, I guess, in the D.C. gulag. He was pardoned and released, went back up to Indiana. I'm not sure about his judgment calls, but, you know, if you just got pardoned on felony or misdemeanor or whatever the case is, if you got pardoned, leaving a federal entity like the D.C. gulag, then you got to be careful with your judgment calls. You got to be careful with your decision-making skills. There's no way I would have been driving around with a gun in my car. Now, one of the other points I wanted to make, is this a trend? Within 4 months, you had 2 people that were associated with the January 6, 2021 protest shot dead. Is this going to be a continuous trend? And are these stories going to continue to be buried? Because the mainstream media, the third point I want to make is that the mainstream media, this is not pumped on airwaves day and night like other stories, like Trump's pardoning. And, you know, Biden pardoned crazy people, stone cold criminals, and then Trump does the same thing, but Trump gets most of the negative media. So mainstream media has a lot to learn. I'm going to personally keep my eye on this story because I do believe that this is a trend. Somebody once told me that 2 data points make a trend, start a trend. You can have 1 data point. It could be an anomaly. It could be a one-off. But when you have 2 data points and it's kind of in the same area, it starts a trend. So I'll be keeping my eye on stories like this. I'll be using X for my breaking news source, and I will keep my subscribers up to date when I get updated. All right. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.